I was sitting in my car, staring at my phone screen, waiting for the notification. It had become routine by now, the waiting. Jennifer had been gone for hours, and I knew she wouldn't respond to my texts for at least another 30 minutes. She was busy, and I didn't want to seem clingy. But this night felt different. I had a gut feeling. Something was off, and I couldn't explain why. Jennifer and I had been married for 5 years, and I had always prided myself on being the supportive, laid-back husband. I wasn't the jealous type. I trusted her completely, and I never wanted to be the controlling partner. But lately, things had changed. Small things, really. The late nights, the cryptic comments from her friends, the unexplained bursts of laughter during phone calls. It wasn't enough to raise a red flag at first, but the pieces were starting to fit together in a way I didn't like. Tonight, I wasn't supposed to be waiting for her to come home. We had agreed to a quiet evening in, but as the hours passed, her plan had shifted. She'd gone out with her friends instead, and I couldn't shake the thought that something wasn't right. I was sitting outside the restaurant they had gone to, my mind racing. Why did I feel like this night was different? It wasn't like me to worry. In fact, I prided myself on being the calm one, the one who kept everything together. Jennifer was the extroverted one, the life of every party, and I always played the role of the background supporter. I didn't mind. She was the one who enjoyed the spotlight, and I was fine being the guy who didn't need attention. But tonight, as I sat in my car with the engine off, waiting for her to text me back, I couldn't ignore the discomfort that was starting to settle in my chest. I glanced at the time, almost midnight. She was supposed to be home by now. The texts I had sent her had been left unread. That feeling of unease was becoming overwhelming. As I stared out the windshield, my phone vibrated. My stomach dropped. It was a text from Sarah, one of Jennifer's closest friends. "Greg, something weird happened tonight. You might want to talk to Jen when she gets home. Don't worry, it's nothing major, but you'll want to hear it from her first." I sat there, frozen. What did that even mean? Sarah wasn't the type to send cryptic messages. I quickly typed a response. "What's going on? What happened?" But before I could send it, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was from Jennifer. "Hey babe, I'm so sorry. I lost track of time, and I'm just heading home now. Can you do me a favor and not ask too many questions when I get in? Let's just call tonight a little chaotic." A chill ran down my spine. That was not like her. Jennifer had never been one to avoid questions, especially when it came to the details of her nights out. She had always been open with me, sometimes too much so. This was the first time she'd ever asked me to hold off on questions. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe she was just tired or embarrassed about something trivial. But the feeling in my gut wouldn't let me shake the worry. I glanced at my phone again, and something caught my eye. It was a new message from Sarah. "It's not what you think. Just talk to her when you get a chance. I'm sure she'll explain." I didn't know what to make of it. Why was Sarah so cryptic? Why was Jennifer asking me to wait? The minutes dragged on. I waited for her to pull into the driveway, but the silence was deafening. I couldn't stop thinking about the tone of her message, the words that didn't sit right with me. There was something about it, something that felt like she was trying to cover something up. When Jennifer finally arrived, it was almost 1 a.m. I could hear the sound of the car engine cut off outside, and then the click of the door as she stepped out. I stood in the doorway, waiting. As she walked in, she immediately hugged me, a little too tightly, like she was trying to hide something. "I'm sorry, babe," she said, her voice strained. "It was a bit much tonight, but I'm glad to be home." I nodded, still unsure of how to respond. "I was getting worried," I said softly. "What happened? Everything okay?" She pulled back from the hug and gave me a tight smile. "Yeah, just a long night. You know how it is. It's nothing. Let's just forget about it." But the way she said it, her eyes avoiding mine, the nervous energy in her movements, it didn't feel like nothing. "Forget about what?" I pressed, my voice shaking slightly. Jennifer hesitated for a moment, and then she let out a sigh. "I don't want to talk about it right now, Greg. Please, let's just go to bed and deal with it tomorrow." I could tell she was avoiding the topic, but part of me didn't want to push her. I was exhausted, and maybe it wasn't the right time. But that nagging feeling in my chest told me I was on the verge of something I didn't want to see. Something was wrong. But she was right about one thing. Tomorrow would be the day I finally found out what had really happened tonight. The day the truth would finally come out. The night passed slowly, as if time itself was stretching out to drag me through the torture of waiting. I lay beside Jennifer, her breathing steady, almost too steady. I could hear her occasional sighs in her sleep, the kind that made me wonder what she was dreaming about. In the dark, I stared at the ceiling, turning everything over in my mind. I had 1,000 questions, none of which I had answers to, and every time I tried to close my eyes, the thought of Sarah's cryptic messages resurfaced. By the time the morning came, I was barely able to function. I had barely slept, caught in a mental loop, questioning everything. The way Jennifer had acted when she came home last night. It wasn't normal. I wasn't one to jump to conclusions. I wasn't the jealous type, or at least, I tried not to be. But there was something different in the way she had avoided me, the way she had brushed me off when I asked what happened. The whole thing had felt off. The morning was quiet. Jennifer got up early as usual, making her coffee and getting ready for work. I watched her, but it felt like I was watching a stranger. Her routine was the same. The way she moved through the kitchen, the way she poured her coffee, none of it gave away anything unusual. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. She was acting like nothing had happened the night before, but it felt like a mask she was putting on to cover up whatever had been going on. "Morning," I said softly, sitting up in bed. I tried to sound casual, but I knew she could hear the uncertainty in my voice. "How are you feeling?" Jennifer gave me a tight smile, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I'm fine, just tired. You know how it is when you get home late." I nodded, but I wasn't convinced. There was something in the way she was talking to me, like she was trying to avoid any deep conversation. Normally, we would have talked about her night, laughed about the fun parts, and maybe even discussed something trivial. But today, it was as if she was purposely keeping things superficial. "Did anything strange happen last night?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light, though my heart was pounding in my chest. She paused, just for a moment, and then shook her head, her fingers tightening around the mug in her hands. "No, nothing strange. Just a bit too much wine, I guess. But I'm fine, Greg. Let's not make a big deal out of it." She smiled again, but this time, it felt forced. She turned away quickly, walking towards the bathroom, clearly trying to avoid the conversation. But something inside me snapped. I couldn't let it go. I wasn't going to sit here and pretend everything was fine when I knew it wasn't. Not anymore. "I'm not trying to make a big deal out of it," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "But last night, when I texted you and you didn't reply, and then Sarah's message, it just doesn't feel right, Jen. What happened?" Her back was still turned to me, and I could hear her breath catch. She didn't answer immediately. For a moment, I thought she wasn't going to say anything at all. Then, she spoke, but her voice was quieter than usual, almost like she was speaking to herself. "It's nothing, Greg. It's just, my friends are a little much sometimes. They have a way of making everything seem like a bigger deal than it is." She laughed, but it didn't sound genuine. "Trust me, I'm fine." Her words didn't settle the storm in my mind. They only made it worse. I knew she was hiding something. And if she wasn't going to tell me, I was going to find out for myself. I spent the rest of the day trying to keep myself busy. I went through the motions, pretending like I wasn't worried, like I wasn't completely consumed by this gnawing feeling that something had shifted in our relationship. But it was there, lurking in the background. Every time Jennifer's phone buzzed, every time she laughed at something one of her friends said, every time she went out for a quick errand without telling me where, I felt it. The distance. The lie. I wasn't going to let her keep pretending everything was fine. That afternoon, I decided to do something I never thought I would have to do. I went through her phone. It was a step I didn't want to take, but I had to know. I had to find out what was going on. As soon as I unlocked the screen, I saw it. The messages. Dozens of texts, mostly from Sarah, but there were others too. They were all recent. "Tonight's the night. Greg's out of the way. Let's have some fun. Just don't let him know. You know how he gets." I stared at the screen, unable to comprehend what I was seeing. The messages were cryptic, but they were clear enough. Jennifer and her friends had been making plans behind my back, and it wasn't just about having a fun night out. No, this was something darker, something more calculated. I kept scrolling, my fingers trembling. There were more messages, but this one stood out. "We're doing this, Jen. Don't back out now. It's your chance to really have some fun, without the boring husband." I felt sick. The words felt like a punch to the gut. Was I really so invisible to her? Was I just some boring figure she could walk all over? I had always tried to be understanding, to give her the freedom to enjoy her life, but this was different. This wasn't just a night out with friends. This was betrayal. I looked at the clock. It was almost time for Jennifer to come home. The truth was right there, staring me in the face, and I knew the moment she walked through that door, nothing would ever be the same. The house was silent when Jennifer walked in, her heels clicking softly on the hardwood floor. I had been waiting for her all afternoon, my mind running 1,000 scenarios, each more painful than the last. She stepped inside, smiling as she always did when she returned home, but there was something in her eyes that told me she wasn't expecting what was about to unfold. The usual warmth in her greeting, the quick kiss on the cheek, it all felt like a performance. A mask she wore to hide something much darker underneath. I stood by the kitchen counter, my hands gripping the edge as if it would steady me. My heart was racing, but I forced myself to stay calm. I had seen the messages, and I knew the truth now, no matter how much I wanted to deny it. "Hey," she said softly, a little too casually. "How was your day? You look like you're in deep thought." I didn't answer her right away. Instead, I pulled out my phone and held it up. The messages were still open on the screen, the words staring back at me like a dagger in the chest. "Jennifer," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "We need to talk." She froze for a moment, her smile faltering as she looked at the phone in my hand. "Greg, what is this?" she asked, but I could hear the hint of nervousness in her voice. I didn't wait for her to finish her sentence. I tapped on the screen, pulling up the thread of text that had shaken me to my core. I slid the phone across the counter to her, my hands still trembling as she picked it up and started reading. The color drained from her face, and for the first time, I saw fear in her eyes. It was a fear I had never seen before, a fear of being caught. What is this?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "Don't play dumb, Jen," I said, my throat tight. "You know exactly what this is. You've been lying to me, and I deserve to know why." She looked at the phone again, as if she could somehow wish the words away. Her fingers tightened around the screen, and I saw her hesitate, searching for the right words, or perhaps for a way out. But there was no way out now. The truth was out in the open. I didn't mean for it to go this far, Greg," she finally said, her voice low and almost apologetic. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "What wasn't supposed to happen?" I asked, my voice rising. "You and your friends have been planning something behind my back for who knows how long. How long have you been laughing at me? Talking about me like I'm just some joke to you?" Her eyes welled up with tears, and for a brief moment, I almost felt guilty for pushing her. But then I remembered the words, the messages that proved it wasn't just a mistake. It was intentional. "I never meant to hurt you," Jennifer said, shaking her head. "It's just, I don't know how to explain it. I've felt trapped lately, Greg. Trapped in this perfect little life we've built, and I needed something else. Something more exciting." "So, you thought cheating was the way to handle that?" I asked, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and disbelief. She flinched at my words, as if the sharpness of my tone had cut deeper than she expected. "No, it wasn't like that," she insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. "I didn't want to hurt you. It just happened. One night out with the girls, and then I got carried away. They told me I needed to take control, to stop being the perfect wife, and start living for myself. I didn't know how to say no." I shook my head in disbelief. "So, this whole thing, all of this, is because you wanted to feel alive again?" Her silence was all the answer I needed. My mind raced as I processed what she had just admitted. It wasn't just about a night out with her friends. It was something deeper, something she had been hiding for far too long. The casual affair, the laughter behind my back, the secrets, they were all pieces of the same puzzle, and now it was clear. "You think I'm boring," I said slowly, my voice eerily calm. "That's it, isn't it? You think I'm predictable, safe, not worth your time or attention. So you turned to them, your friends, the ones who encouraged you to do this behind my back. You thought you could escape from the life we built, but you didn't realize the damage you were causing." "I didn't want to hurt you, Greg. I swear I didn't," she repeated, her voice cracking. "I thought I could just have some fun and get it out of my system. But then it got out of control, and I didn't know how to stop." I laughed bitterly. "You really think it's that simple? You can just get it out of your system? You've destroyed everything we had, Jen. I don't even recognize you anymore." Tears were streaming down her face now, but they didn't move me. I couldn't even look at her without feeling a mix of betrayal and disgust. She wasn't the woman I had married. She had become someone else, someone I didn't know, someone who had no respect for me, for us. I never meant for it to get this far, Jennifer said again. But this time, I could hear the desperation in her voice. She was pleading with me, but I didn't know what she wanted me to do. Should I forgive her? Should I pretend like everything was fine? I couldn't. I just couldn't. I don't know if I can forgive you, Jen, I said quietly, the weight of my words hitting me harder than I expected. I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again. The trust is gone, and I don't know how to get it back. She collapsed on the floor, sobbing, but I didn't move. I couldn't move. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted with everything, had torn it all apart. And now, I was left to pick up the pieces alone. The silence between us was suffocating. Jennifer's sobs echoed in the room, but I couldn't find it in me to console her. The trust we once had, the bond we built over years, was shattered. I could see her on the floor, her face buried in her hands, pleading for me to forgive her, but the more she begged, the more distant I became. I was angry, not just at her, but at myself for letting it get this far. I had been blind, caught up in the idea of a perfect life, of a perfect marriage. I had done everything right, kept the house in order, stayed supportive, never asked for much. I thought that was enough. But it wasn't. She had been living a double life, and I had been too naive to see it. My mind kept replaying her words, the messages I had seen on her phone, the lies she had told me. It wasn't just one mistake, it was a pattern, a web of deceit that I had been tangled in for months, maybe even longer. I'm sorry, Greg, Jennifer choked out, her voice cracking with every word. I never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't think it would go this far. I was just trying to feel something again. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you. I didn't respond right away. I wasn't sure what to say. What was there to say? How do you respond when the person you've trusted the most has broken every promise they made to you? How do you go back from this? You've broken everything, Jennifer, I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. The trust, the respect, the love, you've destroyed it all. Her sobs grew louder, but they no longer moved me. I stood up, pacing the room, trying to shake off the anger, the betrayal, the pain. My mind was racing, and it felt like I couldn't breathe. How could I ever look at her the same way again? How could I ever trust her? I don't know how to fix this, I muttered, more to myself than to her. I don't know if I can ever forgive you for this. Jennifer's voice wavered as she tried to speak, but the words caught in her throat. She stood up slowly, her body trembling, and took a step toward me, her hand reaching out as if to touch me, to hold me, but I stepped back. No, I said firmly. Don't touch me. She stopped in her tracks, her eyes pleading with me. Greg, please. I can't undo what I did, but I'll do whatever it takes to make it right. I'll prove to you that I can change. I don't want to lose you. I felt a pang of guilt. I had always been the one who avoided confrontation, the one who gave in because I didn't want to hurt anyone. But this was different. This wasn't something I could just forgive. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to try. Do you even love me anymore? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. My heart sank as soon as the words left my mouth. The answer seemed so obvious now. She had betrayed me, lied to my face, and shattered everything we had built. I do, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I do love you, Greg, but I was lost. I didn't know how to handle it all, the pressure, the expectations. I thought if I could just escape for a while, things would get better. But I was wrong. I see that now. I shook my head. You think you can just run away from the problem and come back like nothing happened? You've been lying to me, sneaking around, and you want me to believe that you love me? My voice was rising again, the anger building. How many times did you look me in the eye and lie to me, Jen? How many nights did you go out with them, knowing exactly what you were doing? Jennifer opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. She looked defeated, but it wasn't enough. Nothing could fix this now. I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive her. The trust, once so strong between us, was gone. There was no coming back from this. I think you need to leave, I said, the words tasting bitter as I said them aloud. I can't do this anymore. Her face crumpled with shock. What do you mean? Where will I go? Greg, please. I don't know. I don't care, I said, cutting her off. You've already made your choice. You've already shown me who you are. I turned away from her, my chest tight with emotion, but I couldn't show it. I had to be strong. For the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of relief. It wasn't peace, not by any means, but it was something. I was finally taking control. I was finally standing up for myself. Jennifer stood there, frozen, as I moved to the front door. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. She was silent, and for the first time, I saw the weight of her actions in her eyes. She had no excuses left. I opened the door and stepped outside, leaving Jennifer behind. I didn't know where I was going, but I needed to get away from her. I needed space, time to think, to breathe without the suffocating weight of her betrayal hanging over me. As I walked into the cool night, I couldn't shake the image of her standing in the doorway, tears streaming down her face, but I didn't look back. I couldn't. The night air hit me like a slap as I walked aimlessly down the street, my mind in turmoil. I had left Jennifer standing there, her face pale with shock, her body trembling, but I couldn't find it in myself to care. I needed to get away. I needed space, even if it was just for a few minutes. I didn't know where I was going, only that the world felt like it was closing in on me. I walked for what seemed like hours, the weight of what had happened slowly sinking in with each step. The images from that night, from the messages I had read on her phone, played over and over in my mind. How could she do this to me? How could she betray me like that, after everything we had been through? As I walked, I passed familiar streets, places I'd once shared with Jennifer. The little coffee shop we used to visit every Sunday morning, the park where we had taken our first walk together as a couple. The memories hit me all at once, each one like a dagger in my heart. I couldn't believe how easily she had thrown it all away. For what? For a few moments of excitement? For the thrill of feeling wanted again? I stopped in front of a bar, the kind I used to frequent with my friends before life got complicated. I hadn't been here in years, but tonight, it felt like the right place to be. I needed to think, to process everything. Maybe I could drown out the noise in my head with a drink or two. The door creaked open, and the stale smell of beer and whiskey hit me. The bar was dimly lit, the quiet hum of conversation filling the space. I found an empty stool at the far end of the bar and ordered a drink. I needed something strong, something to take the edge off. The bartender slid the glass toward me, and I took a sip, the burn of the alcohol doing little to numb the ache in my chest. As I sat there, nursing my drink, my thoughts kept circling back to Jennifer. I couldn't stop wondering how long this had been going on. How many nights had she lied to me? How many times had she gone behind my back, laughing with her friends, planning these secret escapes? And for what? What was she looking for that I couldn't give her? I wasn't the most exciting guy. I knew that. I wasn't the life of the party, and I didn't have some wild, spontaneous spirit. But I was loyal. I gave her everything I had, and this is what I got in return. I had always known Jennifer liked attention, but I never thought it would come to this. I thought I was enough for her, that our quiet, simple life together was enough. But now, all I could think about was how wrong I had been. I wasn't enough for her. She needed more, something darker, something thrilling. And I wasn't that. I was so lost in my thoughts that I didn't even notice the man who sat down next to me until he spoke. "Rough night?" he asked, his voice gruff but friendly. I glanced over at him. He was an older guy, maybe in his mid-50s, wearing a faded leather jacket and a cap. His eyes were tired, but there was something in them that made me feel like he knew exactly what I was going through. "You could say that," I muttered, taking another sip of my drink. "Yeah, I can tell," he said with a half-smile. "You've got that look. Like you're trying to figure out how to put your life back together after someone's pulled the rug out from under you." I froze. The words hit me harder than I expected. I hadn't said anything out loud, but here was a complete stranger who seemed to know exactly what was going on. "How did you?" I started, but he just waved a hand. "It's a look," he said. "Trust me, I've been there. More times than I'd like to admit." I studied him for a moment. There was something about him, the way he carried himself, that made me feel like maybe he understood. Maybe he knew what it was like to have everything you thought you knew about your life ripped away in an instant. "You've been through it too, huh?" I asked, my voice almost a whisper. He nodded slowly. "A few years ago. Lost my wife, lost my job, lost my home. The whole thing. I had to start over from scratch. But you know what? Sometimes starting over is the best thing that can happen to you. It forces you to figure out who you really are when you don't have anyone else to rely on." I sat in silence, processing his words. Starting over. The idea seemed both terrifying and liberating. The truth was, I didn't know who I was without Jennifer. For years, I had defined myself through her, through our relationship. But now, she had taken that away from me. I was left to pick up the pieces alone. "What do you do now?" I asked. How did you get through it? The man took a long drink from his own glass before answering. One day at a time, he said simply. I focused on rebuilding myself. I found new passions, new things that made me feel alive again. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And I learned something important. Life doesn't wait for you to get over things. It moves on, whether you're ready or not. I took that in, nodding slowly. He was right. Life didn't stop for me, no matter how much I wanted it to. Jennifer had made her choice, and now it was time for me to make mine. I finished my drink in silence, lost in thought. The man gave me a small nod and stood up, walking away without another word. But his words stayed with me, echoing in my mind. I wasn't ready to let go, not yet, but maybe this was the first step toward finding myself again. When I finally left the bar, it was well into the early hours of the morning. I didn't know what my next move was. I didn't know how I was going to face Jennifer again, or if I ever would. But one thing was clear. I couldn't keep living in the shadow of her betrayal. I had to find my own way forward, even if it meant walking away from everything I had ever known. The day after the bar, I woke up with a heavy weight on my chest, but surprisingly, it wasn't as overwhelming as I expected. I had gone through the motions, slept only a few hours, but somewhere between the darkness of the night and the first light of dawn, something had shifted inside me. Maybe it was the conversation I had with the stranger. Maybe it was the realization that I couldn't keep waiting for Jennifer to fix things. But something inside me clicked, and I knew I couldn't keep living in this cycle of self-pity and anger. I had to make a decision. I had to move forward. The house was eerily quiet when I walked in, the scent of stale coffee lingering in the kitchen. Jennifer hadn't been home when I arrived last night, and I hadn't seen her at all this morning. She'd probably gone to work, pretending like everything was fine, like nothing had happened. Part of me wanted to call her, ask her how she was feeling, but I knew it wasn't the right time. There was no way we could just go back to how things were before. She had crossed a line, and I couldn't just let it go. I took a long shower, the water hot against my skin, trying to wash away the heaviness that had settled inside me. The whole situation with Jennifer felt surreal, like I was living in some twisted version of reality that didn't quite add up. I kept replaying the conversations, the messages, the lies. But nothing made sense. How had I missed it all? Was I really so blind to what was happening in my own life? When I finally got out of the shower, I heard the sound of the front door opening. My heart skipped a beat. I knew it was her. Jennifer was home. I stood in the living room, my hands clenching at my sides. Should I confront her again? Should I demand answers? A part of me wanted to tear into her, to make her feel the weight of what she had done, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. At least, not yet. I needed to be smarter than that. I had to figure out what I wanted before I could figure out what to do about her. Jennifer walked in, her steps hesitant, her eyes immediately locking onto mine. She stopped in the doorway, her face a mix of guilt and fear. But I didn't feel sympathy anymore. The woman I had loved, the woman I thought I knew, was gone. In her place was someone who had betrayed me in ways I never imagined. "Greg," she started, her voice shaky. "I know I can't undo what I did, but please, can we talk?" I didn't say anything at first. I just stared at her, taking in the woman who had once been my whole world, now a stranger standing in front of me. I wanted to say something sharp, something that would make her feel the hurt I was feeling, but instead, I just took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. "Talk," I asked, my voice low. "You want to talk now? After everything? After everything you've put me through?" She winced at my words, but I didn't care. I needed her to understand that I wasn't some fool who would just sit back and let her manipulate me again. "I know I've messed up, Greg," she said, stepping toward me slowly. "I know what I did was wrong. I'm not asking you to forgive me right away, but I am asking for a chance. For a conversation. I owe you that much." I watched her carefully, her every move now seeming calculated. She had hurt me deeply, and now, she wanted to talk, like everything was normal. The idea of hearing her out made me sick to my stomach, but I knew I had to make a decision. "Fine," I said, my voice firm. "We can talk. But understand this, Jennifer, nothing you say is going to fix what you've broken. You've crossed a line I don't know how to come back from." Her face fell, but she nodded, understanding the weight of my words. She motioned for me to sit down, and we both took a seat at the kitchen table. "I didn't know how to deal with things, Greg," she started, her voice quiet but filled with emotion. "I felt trapped, not in the sense of our marriage, But in this idea of perfection we had built, I wasn't being honest with myself. I needed to feel alive again, to feel desired. But I didn't know how to talk to you about it. Instead, I let my friends push me. They told me it was okay to step outside of our marriage, to have some fun. And I just listened to them. I thought it wouldn't hurt anyone. I listened, but every word felt like a jab to the chest. She was trying to justify what she had done, but there was no justification for betrayal. You think I wouldn't have understood if you had just talked to me? I asked, my voice barely controlled. You think I would have been okay with you running around behind my back, sneaking around with your friends? You think I wouldn't have noticed? You think I'm stupid, Jennifer? She flinched at the sharpness in my words, but I couldn't help it. The anger was bubbling up inside me again. She wasn't justifying her actions. She was trying to make me the villain in this story. I never wanted to hurt you, she whispered, tears starting to fill her eyes. I thought I could fix it, but I was too afraid to face the truth. I thought I could keep it all a secret, that it wouldn't come out. But now here we are. I don't know how to fix this, Greg. I don't know if I can ever make it right. I took a long breath and leaned back in my chair, my thoughts a jumbled mess. This wasn't what I wanted. This wasn't how I imagined my life would turn out. She had been everything to me, but now, all I could feel was the deep wound of her betrayal. Maybe this can't be fixed, I said quietly. Maybe some things are just broken beyond repair. Her face twisted in pain, and for a moment, I saw the woman I had loved, the one who wasn't trying to make excuses, the one who was genuinely sorry. But I couldn't ignore what had happened. I couldn't forget the lies, the manipulation. Maybe, she whispered, the tears finally falling down her cheeks. But I'm still here, Greg. I'm not going anywhere. I'll wait for you, if you can ever forgive me. I stood up abruptly, feeling a wave of frustration crash over me. Don't wait for me, Jennifer. I'm not sure there's anything left to forgive. With that, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, her sobs echoing behind me. As I stepped out of the room, I knew there was no going back. We had reached the point of no return. There was only one way forward now. The days that followed were a blur, a fog of uncertainty and tension hanging over every room in our house. Jennifer's presence was a ghost, a lingering reminder of the life we once shared, and yet, every time she spoke, I felt like I was hearing a stranger's voice. The woman who had walked beside me through so many years was no longer there. She had turned into someone unrecognizable, and no amount of apologies or promises could erase the betrayal that had etched itself into every corner of my mind. The house felt empty, even when she was there. The silence between us was suffocating, the kind of silence that screamed louder than any words ever could. I found myself staying away more often, going out for long walks just to escape the oppressive atmosphere. But the problem was, every step I took only seemed to bring me closer to the realization that I didn't know what to do anymore. How could I fix this? Could it even be fixed? I tried to keep myself busy, throwing myself into work, running errands, anything to keep my mind off the impending decision. But every moment I spent away from her only made me more conflicted. I kept asking myself the same question. Could I forgive her? Could I ever look at her the same way again? One evening, about a week after our confrontation, I came home later than usual. The house was dark, save for the soft glow of a lamp in the living room. I thought she was already in bed, but as I entered the kitchen, I saw Jennifer sitting at the table, her hands resting on a letter. Her eyes were red, her face drawn with exhaustion, and for the first time in a long time, I saw the raw vulnerability in her. She looked defeated. Greg, she said quietly as I walked in, her voice trembling. She stood up slowly, as if unsure of what to say. I've been thinking a lot about everything about us. And I can't keep pretending like I haven't broken everything. I know I've hurt you in ways I can't even begin to explain, but I can't stand the distance between us anymore. I can't pretend that I'm not losing you. I stopped in my tracks, her words hitting me like a punch to the gut. My chest tightened as I watched her, seeing how broken she truly was. A part of me wanted to pull her into my arms, to tell her that everything would be okay, that we could figure it out. But the other part, the part that had been hurt so deeply, was too raw, too damaged to allow that kind of closeness. I can't do this anymore, Jennifer, I said, my voice hoarse. The words felt like they had been building up for days, months even. I can't keep going in circles with you. I don't know if I can forgive you. She flinched at my words, but then her eyes softened, and she stepped closer. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't expect it. But I need you to understand something, Greg. She paused, taking a deep breath. I'm not asking for a second chance, not right away anyway. But I need you to know that I'm not giving up on us. I know I made a terrible mistake, but I want to prove to you that I can be the person you thought I was. I can change. I'll do whatever it takes. I shook my head, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. I don't even know if I want you to change, Jen. I don't know if I even want you in my life anymore. How do I trust you after everything? The words stung as they left my mouth, but I couldn't hold back. The hurt was too fresh, the betrayal still so sharp. I had spent so much of my life trusting her, believing in her, and now I was left with nothing but the shattered pieces of a life I thought I understood. She looked at me, her expression one of complete honesty. I don't expect you to trust me right away. I wouldn't expect that, but I need you to know that I'm trying. I'm trying, Greg. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make up for this. I swear I will. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but it didn't change the fact that the damage had already been done. She could apologize all she wanted. She could promise all she wanted, but nothing could undo the hurt, the trust she had shattered. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that people could change, that we could fix this, but the reality was staring me in the face, and it wasn't as simple as just forgiving her. I don't know if I can ever believe in you again, Jen, I said quietly, my voice breaking. I don't know if I even want to try. Her face crumpled, and for a moment, I saw the depth of her regret, the pain she was carrying. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to make me forget. It wasn't enough to erase the years of trust that had been ripped away in an instant. I'm sorry, she whispered, almost too softly to hear. I wish I could go back. I wish I had never done it. You can't change the past, I replied, my voice distant. All we have is now. And right now, I don't know if I can even look at you without seeing everything you've done to me. The room fell silent, the air thick with the weight of our words. I felt a tightness in my chest, a deep sense of loss. Not just for what Jennifer had done, but for what I had lost in myself. The man who once believed in love, who once believed in second chances, was gone. All that was left was the aftermath of betrayal, and I didn't know how to fix it. I need some time, Jennifer, I said finally, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. I need time to figure out what I want. I can't make any promises. Not yet. She nodded, her face pale with resignation. I understand, she said softly. Take all the time you need. As I turned and walked toward the door, I felt like I was walking away from everything I had ever known. But at the same time, it felt like the first step toward finding myself again, away from the shadows of her betrayal. I stepped into the night, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something like freedom. It was terrifying, but it was also the only way forward. The days that followed were the hardest I had ever faced. I spent time alone, walking through the streets, finding solace in the quiet of the early mornings. The weight of what had happened still hung over me, but I could feel myself starting to breathe again. For the first time in what felt like forever, I was allowing myself to be free of the pain, free of the ties that had held me in a place of regret and resentment. It was a process, a slow and difficult one, but I knew it was necessary. Jennifer and I didn't talk for a while. I gave her the space she needed, and I took my own time to think about everything, about who I was before the betrayal and who I could become after it. I realized that, for so long, I had defined myself by our relationship, by my role as her husband. But now, I was learning to redefine myself. I started taking better care of myself, spending time with friends I hadn't seen in years, rediscovering passions and hobbies I had put on hold. It wasn't easy, but each day, I felt a little bit more like myself. I wasn't just Greg, the husband who had been wronged. I was Greg, the person who had the strength to stand up and rebuild his life. Then, one evening, about a month after the confrontation, I came home to find Jennifer sitting on the couch in the living room. She wasn't crying anymore. Her face wasn't full of regret. There was something different about her, something stronger, like she had gone through her own journey of self-discovery. Greg, she said, her voice steady, no longer trembling with uncertainty. I've been doing a lot of thinking, and I know I can't ask for your forgiveness right away, but I want you to know that I've changed. I'm not asking you to forget what I've done. I know I don't deserve that, but I want to prove to you that I can be someone worthy of your trust again. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to make it right. I stood in the doorway, my heart heavy but not broken anymore. Her words, though sincere, didn't hold the same weight they once had. I had moved on. I had found peace within myself, and no apology, no matter how genuine, could ever erase the scar that remained. But there was something in the way she looked at me now, something that made me believe she had truly changed. It wasn't about forgiveness anymore. It was about choosing what was best for both of us. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel the need to hold on to the past. I don't know what the future holds, Jennifer, I said quietly, taking a deep breath. But I've learned that I can't live in the shadow of what happened. I've learned that I have to let go of the anger, the hurt. I need to focus on my own happiness. And if that means moving forward, whether that's with you or without you, then so be it. Jennifer nodded, her eyes filled with understanding. I understand, Greg. I'll never push you, but I'll always be here, waiting, hoping that one day we can find our way back to each other. I didn't answer her immediately. Instead, I walked over and sat down beside her. We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of the past finally lifting. It wasn't about us going back to how things were. It was about moving forward, learning from the pain, and finding our own paths. That night, I didn't have all the answers. But for the first time in months, I felt like I was finally free. Free from the anger, from the bitterness. Free to make my own choices, to decide what I wanted out of life. I left the house the next morning, not because I was running away, but because I was choosing to live. I didn't know what the future held, but I was ready for whatever came next. As I walked down the street, the sun shining brightly ahead of me, I realized that sometimes it takes losing everything to truly find yourself. And for the first time in a long time, I felt ready to embrace whatever came next.